Let me start by saying how sad I am not to be with you in beautiful Bali. I had been really looking forward to being at the FSC meetings, but the international program right now seems to be stacked with multiple events in the post-COVID period, and I just couldn't make it. 50 years ago, the world came together in Stockholm in the first major environmental conference. And this year we celebrated Stockholm plus 50. Now, the late President Omar Bongo Ondimba went to Stockholm 50 years ago, gave a very strong speech, and came back to Gabon and immediately, and for the first time, created my ministry, the ministry dedicated to the environment. 20 years later, in Rio, again, President Omar Bongo was there. He made commitments, and when he came back to Gabon, he immediately signed into existence our first environment law, and he initiated the process to revise our forestry law, making forestry, making sustainable forestry obligatory in Gabonese law from 2005 onwards. In 2002, Rio plus 10, Omar Bongo announced the creation of 13 national parks covering 11% of Gabon, the beginnings of Gabon's vision for a synergy between sustainable forestry, regulated by the forestry law, and conservation and community forestry in national parks and community forests. Some years later, President Ali Bongo Ondimba went to his first big international conference in Copenhagen, and he made commitments that forestry would work as a tool, a nature-based solution to fight climate change. And we also finalized the REDD+ process that had been proposed in 2005 by Costa Rica and Papua New Guinea. Then, in Rio plus 20, 2012, Gabon was there again, and 2 years later, we passed our Sustainable Development Law, further signing into law the principle of sustainable development, the principle that forestry needs to be sustainable, needs to work for the Gabonese people, and it needs to work to fight against climate change and against the biodiversity extinction crisis. In 2017, there was a hiccup. Gabon's National Parks Agency, instructed by the President, worked with the Environmental Investigation Agency on an investigation into illegal forestry in Gabon. To our chagrin, we discovered that illegal forestry practices had taken off subsequent to the ban of export of raw logs that the President implemented in 2010 with a view to capturing more of the forest economy within Gabon to make our sustainable forest management more viable. With EIA, AMPN and our forestry agency discovered that we had a $300 million a year illegal forestry operation ongoing in Gabon. This involved fiscal evasion, hiding profits in offshore bank accounts. It included illegal forestry practices, logging undersized trees, protected trees, and logging outside of concessions. And Gabon had to take drastic action. The President's first reaction to this crisis was to declare that all forestry operations in Gabon needed to be FSC certified by 2022. That was because the President already had experience of FSC permits That was because in our investigations, the FSC certified forests in Gabon were performing much better. And that was because we felt that we needed to bring in an international watchdog to validate management practices in order for Gabon to maintain its market share into the future. Obviously, we also initiated reforms within the forestry department. We started working towards a traceability system that will ensure that QR codes follow trees, living trees in the forest, all the way to the port and to their destinations outside of Gabon. We initiated an e-governance system to make sure that we have visibility on forestry operations on a day-to-day basis. We're going through the process of modernizing all of our systems so that we will be able to prove in the future that Gabonese timber is legal, Gabonese timber is carbon positive, timber is biodiversity positive, and that Gabonese timber is socially responsible. And we see FSC and the other certification systems as a key component to these reforms and a key component to the future of forestry in Gabon. So today, the illegal forestry is right down again. All of Gabon's forestry industry are engaging in various levels of certification, some starting with legality certification before they move on to ecosystem certification. Our system of sustainable forestry, where we cut just 2 trees per hectare on average once every 25 years, has proved to be carbon positive. Our 5 decades of environmental governance mean that our deforestation levels have remained less than 0.1%, actually closer to 0.05% over 5 decades. Our forest scientists have proved that Gabonese forestry is carbon positive. So at the end of a 25-year rotation, we actually have more carbon in the forest, in the logged forest, than we would have had we not logged that forest. And because Gabon has maintained its forest cover at 88%, that makes Gabon the country that net absorbs the most CO2 out of the atmosphere of any country on Earth. We are net absorbing over 100 million tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere every year and fixing it in our forests. And that carbon is living, breathing carbon. So like a good wine, our carbon credits mature over time, accumulating biodiversity co-benefits. So it is our opinion that if we're going to save the Congo Basin forests, and the reality is that we have no choice but to keep the Congo Basin forests standing because they store about 10 years of global emissions of CO2. They send rainfall to the Sahel and to Ethiopia. And so a world without the Congo Basin standing is not viable. We believe that this method, this economy of exploiting forests sustainably to save the forests is the only way that we are going to maintain forests into the future. That by cutting trees in Gabon and processing trees in Gabon to create jobs and livelihoods for the Gabonese people, we raise the value of the forest and we turn the Gabonese people into the forest guardians because they will be protecting the livelihoods of their children and of their children's children. So I say to the FSC membership, thank you. Thank you for putting in place this process that exists to iteratively improve forest management over time. I say to the world, buy Gabonese timber if you want to save the Gabonese rainforests. And perhaps we can transform what is happening in Gabon into a model for saving tropical rainforests around the world. This partnership between governments, sound management, and independent verification of our efforts on the ground by FSC is a real winner. Thank you.